Last year I made a poll asking my viewers to choose what Soulslikes I'll cover in 2026, with the top 12 games getting featured this year. But I was a little sneaky, as I'd already started playing Wolong Fallen Dynasty and its DLCs courtesy of PS Plus. Luckily it did make it into the top 12, so I got myself a head start. Wolong Fallen Dynasty was a new take on the Nioh-like genre by the very same devs that created both Nioh and Nioh 2, and yet Wolong Fallen Dynasty stands out as one of my favourite Souls-like games to utilise deflections and parry-based combat. There's just something so satisfying about effortlessly beating an enemy's strike and watching them slip past you while you go for a counter, or getting to hit their perilous red attacks and see a cool cinematic shot play out when you time it correctly. The magic system, while a tad underbaked, also has a few standout spells, and the mystical beasts you can summon throughout the game allow for a diverse variety of builds, even if I just stuck with the cheating spirit from the second mission because by god it just works. And then we have the bosses. For this video, I'll only be ranking the bosses who appear in main missions throughout the game and DLC packs. There are so many optional one-on-one encounters with the various historical figures you encounter that I would actually go insane keeping track of them all. I also apologise for any names I mispronounce. Like my 9 Souls video, I'm doing research to try and get all these names as accurate to the Chinese pronunciations as possible. I'm Billy S, and these are all 31 Wolong Fallen Dynasty bosses, ranked. Let me know your favourite down below. At number 31, we have Totyjoe, one of only 2 true colossal bosses who are fought throughout Wolong. In a game where deflections and duels reign supreme, in a similar vein to FromSoft's Sekiro, it only stands to reason that a boss who is so big you can fairly hit him on screen isn't gonna land. Now, I love the design, a horrifying behemoth with a goat-like head and limbs that sprout from its body like a warped, gnarled tree, skin bubbling with pustules and rot. It's awesome. But then the fight just doesn't do much for me. The boss will attempt to crush you with its giant fist or its legs, which you can deflect for posture damage. The boss can also summon red crystals that'll fire at the player, which you can also deflect back at the boss to chain more hits and stagger him. But the real damage comes when you shatter the red crystals, creating large openings to knock the boss to the floor and attack the weak spot. It has a host of fireball attacks, often firing them between its legs to try and smoke you out from attacking its feet, but those can also be deflected with enough timing. The biggest challenge here is that running under Totyjoe's feet means that you can't really see any of the projectile attacks the boss uses, which leaves you vulnerable. Once you finish the first health bar off, the boss crumples to the ground before resurrecting in a new form. It reveals a horrifying bull head with a giant arm protruding from its mouth, which proceeds to smack you with various combos and a perilous charge attack. But unlike the previous phase, you only need to stun this new form of Totyjoe once to finish the fight, as the next critical blow will take out the boss's full health bar. I didn't care for this type of boss in Nioh, and I don't care for this type of boss here. It just doesn't have the replayability or the intensity to actually pose a threat, slow and lumbering with only a handful of unique moves. It can't compare to the rest of the roster, and I'm sticking to that claim. At number 30, we have Huaxiong, who is fought midway through Mission 7 en route to Lubu. And here he mainly lands this low on the list because he really shouldn't have been a boss with a health bar to begin with. He acts as a commander, holding the fort of a battle flag before the boss fight, and you have the option to either fight him when you first arrive in the level, which could easily result in your death due to his morale rank being 20 and yours being less, or you can explore the rest of the level, collect all the other flags to boost your morale, and take him on towards the end. With the majority of the enemies killed, I found Huaxiong to be pretty standard as a melee fight. He uses perilous attacks to try and turn the tides, but that's all he has going for him. Without them, he wouldn't have the damage output to actually finish us off. I learned this throughout the game, but human opponents are very susceptible to spam attacks. Do 3 or 4 regular hits, then a spirit attack, rinse and repeat while deflecting as needed. I didn't quite know this when I fought Huaxiong, but rewatching my footage, yeah, I could bully his ass on a repeat run with all my knowledge. He should have just been an invader-type enemy. It would have made more sense for the pacing of the mission, given we immediately fight one of the best bosses in the game mere moments later. And yes, that is the Lies of P umbrella that I'm fighting with. What, you thought I wouldn't main the Lies of P weapons? Come on now. At number 29, we have Feng Shi, the final boss of Mission 2. And this is a great moment to talk about reinforcements. Wolong allows you to bring various historical figures throughout your missions, with you having the option to keep them around or dismiss them at battle flags. For the purposes of the narrative, I played all the main missions with their chosen companion characters, then dismissed them at the final battle flag so I could experience the end boss solo. Starting on Mission 3. So, yeah, Zhao Yun, my goat, owner of my divine beast, helped me kill Feng Shi. It doesn't matter though, because the boss is reused at multiple points during the game where I was able to fight it solo, and the strategy truly is just to parry the red attacks and charges while spamming your hardest hitting attacks. Get that spirit gauge up with melee strikes and go to town. Demonic bosses do have the ability mid-fight to reset their stagger gauges by powering up their demonic ki, but that's not a problem for a predictable moveset like Feng Shi's. The novelty of fighting a giant boar is all that keeps him above the other two on the list. At number 28, we have the General of Heaven's Illusion, the second main boss of the first DLC. By all accounts, this boss should not land this low in my rankings. It's a battle where you face a demonic creature who can utilize the various magical elements to attack you from afar, before bopping you on the head with a staff. It can use a special ability to summon spirits to help fight you, which you can destroy by attacking the talismans it places on the field, and it has a super cool design and is fought in a really interesting arena. The problem then, it's a reskin of an early base game boss, and the spirits it can summon are also reskins of two early game bosses. These are the leaders of the Yellow Turbans, and they are all infinitely better when they're fought in the game's main story. Each DLC pack came with 3 unique main fights to challenge the player, alongside a host of side fights I'm not getting into today, which means 1/3 of the first DLC pack was a refight that tries to become a gank boss. And these DLCs cost €12 each, assuming you don't purchase them on sale or go for the season pass. Basically, I am ranking this boss low because I think it's fucking scummy to ask players to pay half a Silk Song to experience a reskin of a boss that not a lot of people liked to begin with. At number 27, we have Juyen, the mid-boss of Mission 2, a demonic ape whom I found to be quite the fun battle to learn this early in the game. This monkey has a lot of slow, deliberate slams with his massive arms which you need to learn to deflect. He also has 2 dangerous red attacks. The first sees him launch across the arena in a foot-first charge that you need to deflect into, while the second is a large skyward slam that you have to reflect as he lands, lest he catch you in a grab instead. Beyond that, his regular combos are fairly standard, and the developers knew this as they began placing smaller Juyens throughout the game as regular enemies. He even gets a harder boss variant in the final DLC that ups the speed of all his attacks and adds a few more combo swings. He lands this low for the sheer reuse throughout the game, but I genuinely enjoy the challenge he brings on your first run. He's a great reflection test for those deflection skills. At number 26, we have Zhang Liang, General of Man, the main boss of the first mission of the game. One of the 3 leaders of the Yellow Turbans, Zhang Liang is one hell of a first boss to throw at the player. He's got an awesome, fear-inspiring design, and wields a massive club-like spiked hammer that can and will fuck you up. It was my first mission. You can tell I'm like a deer who can't walk in my gameplay. I'm missing fairly obvious deflects, and yet was still able to get the parries in needed to build up that stagger. Once you deplete his health bar though, Zhang Liang swallows an elixir and transforms into a raging demon, his left arm becoming centipedal in its stretchiness, and now following up certain attacks with earth magic for good measure. Again, everything in this game can be deflected, but that doesn't mean I wasn't caught off guard by what was happening. The blindfolded boy explains that we have a jade that can stop the boss, and thus rather than defeat the boss outright, our goal is to charge the meter of our divine beast, and once it activates, the fight ends automatically, in exactly the same fashion as Nioh's tutorial. I'm starting to sense that Team Ninja has a bit of a theme going on here. I still have no idea how I managed this on my first try. 2 very skilled deflects against his red attack in the second phase, and that last stun really turned the tide. It's so funny because in the first DLC, you actually get a side mission where you end up refighting this boss, and I completely forgot his moveset and got my ass handed to me for a couple of attempts. Beginner's luck? I'm not sure. He does his job perfectly well, but his main fight getting cut off by the Divine Beast cutscene brings the whole thing down a tad. At number 25, we have Aoye, an absolutely terrifying design for a demon coated in thick strands of hair alongside a horse-like face. I accidentally forgot to desummon Hongjing for this fight, so yeah, she's gonna get her shit rocked. But I fought Aoye a few times solo in future missions. This is one of the larger demon creatures to actually have a bearable moveset. You can generally see all the slams and sweeps of the boss's tentacles, and many of the perilous attacks are easy to counter and reflect. In fact, Aoye went down like a sack of bricks in this mission. It wasn't until the post-game, where you feature a demonic enemy gauntlet submission, where I truly felt Aoye's strength. Give this boss a decent health bar and some ice attacks to spice up the proceedings, and you have a battle that can catch you really off guard. I suspect even without Hongjing that Mission 5's variant would still be a pushover though, which is a real shame, as I think the reveal of this dark, monstrous creature being fought in this gorgeous mountaintop sunlit field is such cool juxtaposition. But I just don't find it all that memorable outside of its design and its ice spit. Other bosses intrigued me far more. At number 24, we have Baishu, the mid-boss of Chapter 6, a snake demoness who fights with her sweeping snakes that coil around her at all times, and her poison magic. Her moveset isn't terribly fleshed out, with Baishu mainly focusing on placing poison pools around the arena to either pen you in or keep you away. Her main red perilous attack was fairly easy to predict, allowing me to give her snakes a nice kick to the snoot, and as this was a mission mid-boss, I entered with Chow Chow and definitely had an easier time with him taking some aggro. That doesn't change that I still had 3 healing flasks by the fight's end, so I totally could have handled her solo, but for a boss that has such an interesting arena and such a cool design, it's a shame that she becomes very forgettable in the grand scheme of things. She showed up in a mission in the 3rd DLC, and I genuinely had to think for a good 10 minutes as to where I'd seen her in the game prior. That type of memorability, or in this case, lack of, is a pretty bold case for being in the bottom third of the ranking, even if I think her design is pretty cool. Another interesting attack or two would have gone a long way. At number 23, we have Zhang Zhao, General of Heaven, the leader of the Yellow Turbans. He's the boss that got reskinned for the DLC, and yet it's his original form that feels superior, even if I have a slightly embarrassing story in regards to this fight. See, this game is all about deflecting, and yet here I am, sitting here, trying and failing to deflect all his attacks and getting supremely confused. I'm certain I'm pressing the right buttons, so what gives? Turns out, I was over my equipment weight limit, which stops you from being able to deflect. I got so frustrated only to realize that the frustration was entirely self-inflicted, and once I started deflecting again, Zhang Zhao was like any other boss fight. He uses a ton of wizardry skills to keep you at bay, with a focus on lightning and wind, whilst he has multiple red attacks to catch you off guard. A thrust grab that impales you on his claws, and a projectile that can be deflected and thrown back in his face with proper timing. These ranged red attacks become far more prominent later into the game, and while they aren't as devastating as countering a melee perilous strike, they deal good stagger damage and have the potential to be really fun to master. I love how, similar to Sekiro, once you understand your own moveset and your ability to stagger, a boss who could be above half health could suddenly be near death not a few moments later. Especially with these big lumbering demons, it's so satisfying to be on the back foot only to turn the tides and clinch out the win. I also like the progression of the demon fights in Wolong. They start bestial and feral, but as more historical figures become demons for their boss fights, you start to see them take on more regal humanoid features. It's really only the villains who fully turn into monsters, meanwhile the good guys look like any monster I could see on furry social media. At number 22, we have Len Liang and Wen Chao, the duo mid-boss of Mission 14. In the introductory cutscene, they showcase how one of them is able to revive the other, which hints at the gameplay gimmick where you need to kill the pair at the same time. It's Throne Watcher and Throne Defender from Dark Souls 2, but with the Ornstein and Smo body types, one being lanky and fast, while the other is large and in charge, chunky and funky. I enjoyed this gank. It's nothing revolutionary or anything we haven't seen before, but it absolutely does its job. And as you do this mission with Guan Yu as your companion, you actually have the ability to split the aggro of the bosses, which led to a more entertaining fight. Neither boss has a stacked health bar, especially given they're a mid-mission fight, but they pack a punch if you're not careful. Especially Lin Yang, whose faster attacks and ability to bound around the arena felt more dangerous than the stomps of Wenqiu. I liken it to its impact to something like Silksong's four brothers Cygnus and Gron, a gank fight that doesn't really leave much impact, but you can tell is really well designed. It is why it lands this low though. It's a good fight, it's just not a memorable one, and doesn't do much we haven't already seen. I do love when both bosses are trying to attack you and you iframe out of one attack by deflecting the other boss though. It's the one good thing about Wolong's deflection system. Ganks and multiple enemies can get overwhelming, but one or two good deflects and you are immediately back in the game in a better position. At number 21, we have Yuji and the embodiment of demonic ki. Yuji started everything that went down in this game. He abducted the blindfolded boy, he spread the elixir across the land in his attempts to achieve immortality, and now you finally get the opportunity to get some payback. In his initial Yuji form, he's actually rather simple. He uses a host of all 5 wizardry element spells to try and knock you down while hitting you with fairly telegraphed red attacks in between. You have your allies actively giving you advice throughout the fight, and despite the boss's penchant for teleporting, his poise is paper. Get in close and you can interrupt any of his spells with a good swing of the weapon, which makes sense. Anytime we've seen Yuji, he's always used trickery and teleportation to overwhelm his opponents. Thus, when faced with my handsome devil, he can't handle my melee prowess. I love that he uses every element. I love that his moveset isn't too hard to understand, yet easy enough to burst through once you've reached the embodiment of demonic ki form enough that you just want to get back to that second phase. And that second phase is cool, visually striking, and some of the attack combos are really fun to deflect, even if I do think it's a bit goofy when he tries to use those skinny-ass fists to slam you between combos. His red attacks are tricky at first glance, but once the timing is down, you'll get them reflected in no time. I love that some of his combos end with him spinning directly into the player's face, so you have ample time to actually hit him. It's definitely better than the equivalent boss from Nioh, which I hated with a passion, but I do think that some of the boss's movements in the air look a bit janky and are sometimes hard to predict. I can't help but wish the entire encounter felt cleaner, more refined. Like, I think it's a bit dumb that the boss can summon these giant fireballs, and you simply have to dodge into them while they're stationary to clear them off. It just doesn't feel finished. They should have been full projectiles or something, little things like that. And also the game is just better when you're fighting creatures closer to your size, or the size of the average demon boss. At number 20, we have Chang Zhang, who rounds out the bottom third of the list. Fought at the end of Mission 6, this is a gank fight through and through, as the boss will summon a vast host of clones who all begin to attack you at the start of the fight. Now, most Soulsborne and Souls-like fans will likely want to start ripping their hair out, but I had a different experience. Yes, this fight is hectic. Each clone gives the real Chang Zhang a buff, meaning you need to defeat as many of the clones as possible to deal meaningful damage to the boss. The developers knew this, however, and decided to give all the clones extremely weak health and stagger bars. Effectively, you're able to stagger and defeat the clones in just a couple hits, with the main challenge being getting knocked out of combos by attacks from all around you. I found this fairly simple to avoid by just deflecting whenever multiple enemies were around me, which, more often than not, I'd managed to avoid danger and even parry some red attacks, which, let me tell you, felt really good. Combo with my Divine Beast, which placed earth pillars around me in a sort of shield, and I had protection from a lot of Chang Zhang's forces. You can even stop him from resummoning his clones in Phase 2 by just bursting him down with damage during Phase 1, which I managed and felt insanely satisfied with. I don't know, I was scared of this fight during the intro cutscene, but in practice I think he was really well balanced and not that hard. Am I weird? Maybe I'm weird. At number 19, we have Shiyao, the boss of the first mission of the third DLC. This is a towering plant woman filled with demonic ki and a really cool moveset. Naturally, she focuses on poison, able to spray poisonous clouds that coat the battlefield and help obscure her next move. She can use the rose on her left hand as either a shield or a weapon to launch her next attack, while swiping you with her clawed right hand or her massive tree trunk legs. It goes without saying, but fire wizardry is key to this fight, and it's such a shame that prior to this, I had shifted all of my spells to Earth to deal with the last boss fight from DLC 2. I love her movement style, it's so Bayonetta in terms of her flexibility, and feels great to deflect, especially hitting those red attacks of hers at the very end of a given combo. That being said, she does lose points for becoming a regular enemy in the final mission of the DLC, which lessens the enjoyment somewhat, and her main red attack is incredibly easy to parry since it always comes at the end of a lengthy recognizable combo. She does break out a brutal charge attack towards the end of the fight, but nothing that'll make you sweat. I kinda wish she was part of the base game story, as her floral design would have broken up some of the monotony of facing very similar style opponents throughout the main game. At number 18, we have the Captive Swordsman, the boss of the second mission of DLC 3. We rescue him from a mining dungeon, where he then proceeds to face us in battle to determine if we have the power to defeat the DLC's true antagonist. And his moveset is very interesting. He wields a power to create spectral weapons out of nothing, very Morgott from Elden Ring coded, which is always a good route to go with me. He also has a perilous attack where he jumps into the air, hangs for a moment, then slams down, whose timing always caught me off guard. This late into the game, that's impressive because it felt like I'd seen just about every type of perilous attack possible, and here he comes managing to break me by half a second each and every time. It's a shame for him then that I was a fully leveled character, and thus wasn't taking a ton of damage from him. It wasn't until the side mission rematch with him where I felt the Captive Swordsman truly came into his own. It's just a longer version of his regular fight with higher damage, but was so much fun. He's also a boss that, like many of the endgame fights, likes to combo red attacks into more red attacks. You can reflect one, then you'll be faced with another you need to reflect, so on and so forth, which for me is one of the best gameplay enhancements from the start of Wolong, as you're now playing a game of reflection tennis and building up stagger immensely as a reward. Good on Captive Swordsman for entertaining me, but of the main DLC bosses across the 3 packs, he is the worst of the human fights by far. At number 17, we have Xu Chu, the first boss of the first DLC, who makes quite the entrance with his giant hammer and chain. There's only one thing scarier than a giant colossal hammer, and it's a giant colossal hammer whose head can detach and spin around its wielder like a goddamn whip. That being said, his main mission encounter is fairly easy, his combos are pretty slow, and the most you need to watch for are when he launches rocks from the ground with his hammer swing. No, this is the one time I need to break my own rules as we talk about Xu Chu's submission rematch, because oh god, he inherits a divine beast from Dian Wei, and it makes him infinitely more dangerous. His divine beast controls wind, and he can combo it with his spinning attack to pull you in towards him, which then leaves you open for a red attack straight after, where he does 3 hammer strikes, each increasing in distance. This move is disgusting, fast-paced, and killed me more times than I care to admit. Aggression was my only option here, as Xu Chu simply wouldn't give me time to breathe. That and parrying his tornado attack in phase 2 to get my spirit up to maximum, making my spirit attacks hit for more stagger. I felt lucky winning this fight, and I can definitely see the places I could do better in, but I just think despite the aggression, that his moveset and weapon is so fun. It deserves a highlight. Not the challenge I expected, but the one I respected. Come on, Dr. Seuss! At number 16, we have Liu Bei, the main boss of Mission 14, where this friendly face has been tragically turned into a draconic storm demon, and it's up to us to bring him to his senses and return him to his brothers. This fight has a lot of good going for it. I think Liu Bei's melee attacks are pretty entertaining to deflect, and he uses a ranged red attack that has you returning red sword swipes towards the boss in epic fashion. It's like reflecting a strike from a Moonlight Greatsword. He can summon lightning projectiles to strike you down from afar, creating lightning waves across the floor with his swords, and has an epic grab where he launches you into the sky and eviscerates you with fast lightning slices. All of this sounds great, because it is, except for one single move that keeps Liu Bei all the way down in 16th instead of my top 10. He has the ability to summon lightning orbs which will land across the battlefield and then explode, sending lightning shockwaves out. The problem is that most of these shockwaves happen off screen, so unless you are a god at positioning the camera, you will not see any of these lightning attacks until you've already been hit. It's a really cheap sense of difficulty that takes an otherwise amazing fight and puts it back down to a little mediocre. If it wasn't for the fact that I became quite the fan of Liu Bei during the story, as I found his faction to be the most interesting of the bunch, he could have landed even lower on this list, I'll admit it. At number 15, we have Sun Jin, the final boss of Mission 9, who is purely here to appeal to the furries. Why else would they make him turn into a buff white tiger demon who is suspiciously similar in story beat to the white tiger from Nioh? Sun Jin is very much a melee fighter who uses the feral claw swipes and Godfrey-style leg stomps to beat you into submission. His arms and tail are coated in red crystals, which I assume can be smashed for stagger damage if you're good enough, otherwise you've just got to learn his combos and survive. Midway into the fight, he buffs himself with poison, making all his claw swipes extra fatal, and he begins incorporating his tail more into the combos. I love this tail slam into whirlwind forwards, as well as the tail slam red attack move where he drags it along the ground, challenging you to parry it. It's not hard to avoid, but looks cool enough. Sun Jin is just a good fight, nothing too crazy, but his focus on melee combos and the lack of red attacks in the early portion force you to play extra aggressively with your reflex and spirit attacks, and the narrative significance of this moment also lands really well. His sons came to save him, yet all he could do at this point was pass on his legacy to them. At number 14, we have Yuan Shao, the first boss of Mission 15, and one of the big bads of the game. He was once on our side, but after seeing the capital city burn, grew jaded with the current regime. And when we face him down, he uses elixir to transform himself into a giant turtle-like creature. But I don't think anyone was prepared for him to somehow actually be an armored core boss. The man doesn't move like a man. He uses the cannon on his arm to fire ice blasts that propel him around the arena like a mech. He has various ice abilities he can use against you, like ice falls and point-blank blasts. He can throw his turtle shell to grind around the battlefield and harass you, though this one is easy to counter with a simple reflection right after Yuan Shao sends it out. I never got the hang of his whip on the other hand though. Any attacks involving it messed me up, both in the main mission and the various side missions where he can be refought. And his grab where he picks you up with his ice blaster and just buffets you with frozen mist is fucking metal. I'm just fascinated by the way he moves and the way he makes this arena his bitch. It's so unlike anything else in the game, it feels way more modern than a majority of the demons you face, and that helps me to really enjoy the fight, even if it isn't anything too extraordinary, and extremely easy if you simply hug him from close up because most of his attacks are long range. At number 13, we have Yuan Shu, the final boss of the final DLC of Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and thus he has a big role to fill. He's got the Slave Knight Gale position, and thus needs to leave an impact, and he does. Yuan Shu is brutal. He can command all 5 elements just like UG, but is far more aggressive with them all, utilizing various hard-hitting elemental attacks and charges to keep you on your toes across the battlefield. His first phase, I thought, was super tough my first go around, with me getting hit by his combos and struggling to make headway. Yet by the time I actually won against Yuan Shu, I was just shutting down his ability to perform wizardry and bursting him into phase 2 without so much as a second glance, because most of his spells involve him dropping weights to the ground for AoEs. Then he follows up with actual attacks, and those weights are so easy to time and thus easy to deflect. And as long as you stay aggressive, you can keep that spirit bar up and just claim victory. Phase 2 though? Fuck Phase 2. I kept getting 1 or 2 shot by his starting attacks after he summons his own Divine Beast to power himself up, to the point where I was just annoyed. His attacks are so flashy, whether it's throwing fire spears that are hard to distance judge, or pelting you with a horde of ice attacks that had me throwing down a bog spell just to breathe. On my winning run, which I did with the Dunfu reinforcement because I was that tired, the only reason I won was because I got a stagger on him while he was powered up, which then dispelled his Divine Beast and brought him back into his Phase 1 moveset for a short while, and I took full advantage of that. The fact that you can power him back down is the one part of the fight I enjoyed, but also I think he was powered down for too long. I was expecting at least one more last gasp before I took him out at the end of the second phase. Maybe I took him down too quickly? I'm not complaining. So the difficulty of the fight just comes down to learning the start of Phase 2, getting that initial stagger, and bish bash bosh, it's back to an easy Phase 1. Still, I was satisfied with this fight. I felt the spectacle worked in its favour, and while it's not really a Slave Knight Gale, I'd say it's like a, I don't know, Sin the Slumbering Dragon, Burnt Ivory King, if that makes any sense. At number 12, we have Totyjoe, the mad tyrant who looks like he could use a bath and some shampoo. You fight him in his banquet hall within his stronghold, and he is a tricky motherfucker. He wields a spear, which means a lot of the lunges will catch me off guard because I suck against spear wielders in every game I play, but he has early red charge attacks that are easy to block. Between that and his red attack in midair, you can deal some good early damage. Spear wielders mess me up because half the time their animations are just flourishes that don't do damage, so you have no idea when the actual damage part of the attack is coming, which is so weird coming from Totyjoe, who is just this behemoth of a man. One of his grabs, he just headbutts you multiple times, throws you to the ground where you kneel, and he cuts you down. It is intimidating, it is effective, and yet the coolest moment is this red ranged attack he uses towards the end of the fight, where he fires a red beam at you that you can deflect to smash back at him. It happened at the best moment for me, and I audibly said in recording, "Whoa, that's so cool," which I never do. I'm usually silent as a mouse most of the time on gaming. He did end up throwing the fight to me by chaining multiple red charge attacks at the end of my winning attempt, which I took advantage of to stagger him, followed by him running into my Divine Beast Spires like an absolute dumbass. Incredibly funny to watch, a very fitting end for a character that nobody in lore likes. I suspect on a replay Totyjoe would hand me my ass, so maybe I'll just never play Wolong again and enjoy my first time victory. At number 11, we have Gan Ning, the first boss of the second DLC pack, a pirate who specializes in hand-to-hand combat, whose whole encounter actually revolves around the perilous attack mechanic. He has powerful poise, but will use red attacks more often than other fights, forcing you to learn his timings, get those reflects, and watch out for what comes next. Because he chains those red attacks, and he chains them a lot. In his regular mission variant, you're eased into Gan Ning's insane poise via the first half of the fight, which is your regular human v human. Then he starts flipping around, launching himself off the ship's mast to slam into you, and even taunting the player so he can deflect your attacks. It's unhinged, and for a character who barely gets any focus after this beyond his rematch, I wanted more. He seems so cool. His fist weapons are fucking Raven gauntlets. He is an icon, a legend, truly the moment. And yet that rematch, oh my god, it is a test of a player's stamina. He does so much damage per hit that you need to learn his combos or just bait out every red attack and go nuts. You have to stagger him like 6 times to finish him off compared to the 2 or 3 times from the main mission. And his aggression means you're always flirting with him finishing you off with a bad dodge or block. He's got style, he's got grace, he's got Raven gauntlets in your face, and I just wish he was in the game more. Stole the show. Star of DLC 2. Until the next mission where we get introduced to, well, you'll see in a few entries. At number 10, we have Zhang Bao, General of Earth, fought at the end of Mission 3. And in my opinion, he is so much cooler of a fight than his 2 brothers, as he actively helped to teach me how to better play the game. Up to this point, I was good at reflecting regular enemy attacks, but it didn't really click that I could also reflect all of the spells and projectiles in the game as well. Then here comes Zhang Bao with his copious fire spells that are just begging for you to deflect them so you can build up your spirit meter and deal stagger on the boss. It also helps that while he does teleport around like most magic bosses, he stays in place for longer and is willing to tank a few player hits before dipping out. In fact, when the midpoint of the fight hits, I love that he actively starts trying to attack the player with his spinning forward combos. He's a bit weak to getting stun-locked in the corner early on, but what human enemy isn't weak to that at some point in this game? I don't hold it against him. I also love his little fake-out grab attack where he tries to attack you only to vanish and then appear somewhere else so he can run at you and grab you. It took me a little bit to get used to the timing, but once I got it down, he couldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole. He's also one of the few bosses in the game to actually buff himself mid-fight, summoning 3 warlocks that you have to kill to remove the buffs. It's not a hard thing to do, they go down in like 2 to 3 hits, but it does add a tiny bit to the challenge. and I love the strategy of it all. Zhang Bao is a freak, but he's a freak who knows his shit. At number 9, we have Xiahao Duen, who takes the award for funniest transformation in the game, as they took a genuine historical moment with this figure, as in history he gets shot in the eye by an arrow, and they just made it some poor soldier bopping him with a shard of demonic ki to transform him in what could have been such an easily avoidable situation. And yet I'm glad it happened because we get to face one of the coolest demon designs in the game. Xiahao Duen transforms via the power of his phoenix, divine beast, into a flaming winged knight who wields a giant bloody scythe, and it looks so fucking cool. His fight revolves around avoiding extremely fast charge attacks from the sky, scythe combos, and a lot of fire. Somehow, his swooping red attack was really easy for me to parry, while most of his regular attacks involving his scythe and his flames were really tough for me. It's pretty easy to get his AI to keep doing the red attack swoop though, which I can tell helped me out a lot. Because were he more melee focused the entire time, good lord, I think I would have been dead multiple times. But what I love is that this fight feels completely fair. It's got visual spectacle, firelit as the battlefield, and yet I never found myself overwhelmed. I always felt somewhat in control, even when I was panic healing. Xiahao Duen is a fight I would love to throw down with again, just to see if my reflexes from my first encounter were genuine or luck. He is the better of the two winged demons between him and Liu Bei from earlier in the list. At number 8, we have Mezuki, a post-game unlockable encounter who is a boss from Nioh 2. This is a crossover event where they decided to pop one of their bosses from their previous title into Wolong, and I was pretty hype. They even have a different death screen when you die, which I love. Now, Mezuki itself is an awesome design, and the weapon, the giant saw, is grim when you get grabbed and sawn up by the boss. But the actual fight itself is mainly tough due to Mezuki's damage. The moveset itself isn't overly complex, with a lot of heavy swings, an easy-to-reflect red charge move. Midway into the fight, Mezuki inflicts the arena with a horrifying aura that, I'll admit, I don't know what it did, but it certainly made me feel like I was in danger. And dealing damage and stunning Mezuki is what I needed to do to repel it. Maybe it was giving him more damage or something, I'm really not sure. Maybe if I played Nioh 2, I'd understand. It can also summon spirits as projectiles, which gave me a little panic, but overall, once you learn Mezuki's moveset, it's not that brutal. What I'm wondering is if this moveset is Nioh 2 accurate, cause I would love to be able to take my muscle memory over. This was just a really neat fight that I wasn't expecting, and I'm happy I got to experience it. I understand it wasn't in the game at launch, so nobody talked about it back then in boss rankings. Does that make me one of the first? Who knows? At number 7, we have the Taishutsu Demon form, the final boss of DLC 2, and the winner of hardest boss in this fucking game. There is no competition here. I fully get it if demonic Taishutsu is your favorite fight in the game, because he truly does fit the bill for being a hard as fuck endgame challenge who will decimate you until you get good. And I do love him, but I also think he's overtuned a tad. Phase 1, he strides towards you, giant sword in hand, ice radiating from every attack, and then you immediately get hit by the red attack where he launches you into the air and slams you back down to earth. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but I could not get the timing of this attack down, and it just comes out so fast and out of nowhere, often when I was animation locked or healing. I love that for the boss. It's just a brutal move for me. He then has multiple ice attacks at ranged, he can launch ice beams from his sword, he has a 4-hit combo that he can choose to repeat 3 times in a row, which means it's actually a 12-hit combo that I couldn't get the hang of without tanking a bunch of hits, though knowing it's just the same 4 attacks but repeated might help my brain next time I try the fight. Taishutsu truly comes into his difficulty though in Phase 2, where the air gets cold and he summons a storm of ice to pelt the player. His combos are... I don't know how to deal with them normally. I kept dying so quickly that I resorted to using a mud bog spell that if you stand in, you become immune to ice projectile attacks. I just had to wait for Taishutsu to come over, get him with some slowness when he steps in the mud, and bam. Earth spells are just so powerful here, and I don't regret taking the boss on this way because I simply wasn't good enough at Phase 2 to even see his combos most of the time, whereas with this method I could analyze them safely and store that for another encounter. I think his damage is a bit much, but perhaps I could have found better frost-resistant armor? I don't know, I had fun. Taishitsu's demon form is the most memorable boss from this game, and the character definitely deserved to have that focus, but it's also got that so hard I'd rather fight a different boss energy sometimes. You know how with some tough bosses you can be fighting them for hours before you get tired? Taishitsu gets me exhausted 30 minutes in. Just missing out on the top 5, we have Liu Bu's demon form from Mission 13, where Liu Bu doesn't just get on the horse, he becomes the motherfucking horse. This is his second boss fight, after we watch him fail to defeat Yu-Ji, and thus it's up to us to put him out of his tyranny. And I was terrified. We all know not to pursue Liu Bu, but here we have no choice. He starts off with some slow halberd swings and AoE slams that are pretty simple to deflect. He may also start galloping around the arena throwing small fireballs. Or he can do a red attack fireball that slowly approaches you. If you reflect it, you'll begin a round of energy tennis with the ball getting faster and faster until either you mess up or he does. I love that they incorporated Zelda energy tennis into Wolong, and I love that it's with Liu Bu of all people, so iconic. Midway through the fight, he summons his fires and begins a tougher assault, each slam causing flaming AoEs to mark the ground, and one of his red attacks has him dragging his weapon along the floor to sweep you up into a fiery vortex. His aggression increases, but the speed of his attacks actually feels quite manageable. I especially love the attacks where he sweeps his lance and then a fiery afterimage hits a moment later. It keeps you paying attention to more than just his weapon, but the flames he wields as well. Sticking close to him is what ultimately brings you the victory, and if you can handle his final combos with his last power-up, Liu Bu falls for the final time. I prefer his human form fight, but I really respect how solid his demon form is, both in terms of spectacle and fairness. At number 5, we have Dian Wei, the final boss of the first DLC pack, a stalwart general who uses elixir as a last resort, becoming a demonic Naga-Kuga-like creature that we have to defeat to restore order, even at the cost of his life. He's mastered the power of the wind, creating various tornadoes to try and entrap you as the fight progresses, while remaining in the air to do various slams to stomp you to dust. I love the red tail attack where he shoots a lightning bolt at you. I suck at parrying it for some reason, but I just love that his horrifying tail gets a lot of use and feels like its own weapon in this fight. He can also create electric projectiles that you need to deflect, and his tail can become a vacuum cleaner that sucks you into Dian Wei's attack range, where you'll need to block a series of slams before dodging a brutal red attack once the suckage stops. I failed this every time. Midway through the fight, he gains 2 large cleavers, which now punish the end of his melee combos with an extra hit, and overall, you just have to be more cognizant of his projectiles and his attacks to come out on top. It's a fight where the punish windows feel extremely fair, and the combos aren't needlessly brutal, so you have the opportunity to get back into the swing of things. It is my favorite demon boss in this game, and you know what? I'm gonna admit it, he's a smash. At number 4, we have Taishitsu, fought at the end of the second mission of DLC 2. Here we face Taishitsu in his human form, where he wields a deadly ranged bow and a very hard-hitting sword. I've seen some compare him to Genichiro from Sekiro, and I definitely see it. He's deadly with a bow, and yet his melee combo game is intense and frenetic. I love when he kicks the sword forwards like a circular saw, or when he summons his divine beast to attack you with arrows from the sky. The muddy bog I used in his demon fight can actually negate all his projectiles here, which I did with his rematch, but I didn't know this at this point, so Taishitsu, I fought you on your level for the first time. My one complaint is actually with his bow though. He can shoot up to 5 arrows in succession, but I think that should only happen towards the latter half of the fight. Getting domed with 5 arrows at the very start sucks, even if I just need to get good with the timing. But hey, getting up close and personal with Taishitsu to the point where I'm managing to keep up with his combos is one of the best feelings in the game. I don't know who this man is. I don't know what his significance to the lore of Romance of the Three Kingdoms is, but I know he is insanely fun to battle. At number 3, we have Zhang Liao, a subordinate of Liu Bu, whom we face at the end of Mission 12. He is a lightning sword wielder, and is one of the most dangerous fights in the game, with serious potential to 1- or 2-shot the player if they really underestimate him. He has two forms in his fight, one where he's powered up by his divine beast and his weapon glows and crackles with lightning, which is where his deadly combos come into play, and his powered down state where he's still dangerous but far more manageable. Just look at the absurdity of some of the combos on screen and how so many of them end with him striking his front with lightning, which forces you to position carefully. His perilous attacks come out quick, but if you can punish them, you go a long way. His longest attacks are so fast that deflecting them takes genuine skill. I always take at least one hit, but because of this aggressiveness and how non-careful play can result in a quick death, Zhang Liao forced me to play carefully, to really watch what I was doing and who I was fighting. He's also brutal in his late game submission rematch, but it's in his official boss battle where I felt that electricity within my soul. I had to learn, I had to get good, and I found his fight to be so fulfilling as a result. Zhang Liao being Liu Bu's bodyguard makes a hell of a lot of sense, because if you're Liu Bu, you want the best around you, and he is very much the best. At number 2, we have the Blindfolded Boy, the final boss of the main game. Having been possessed by Yuji, we have to fight our friend who started us on this quest and save him from the evil Taoist's machinations. What I love about this fight though is that it combines the moveset that Yuji had in his previous fight with the sword skills of the Blindfolded Boy to create an encounter that truly tests the player. And yes, mark it off the Billy S bingo, one of my favourite fights in a game takes place in a flower field. Blindfolded Boy is the very challenge I wanted from a final fight. He uses the Yuji wizardry while comboing intense melee strikes, multiple red attacks in succession, and a hefty damage output to really give the player that "this is the end" energy. I especially love his red attack where he summons 2 clones, using them to try and confuse you while the real boss gears up for the attack. He also has the ability to reflect you, the player, something I was expecting the game to do more of if I'm honest. And look at that, a final boss whose health bar fully matches the spectacle. I truly felt like I got the full experience that this boss has to offer, a battle between 2 evenly skilled fighters clawing tooth and nail for that victory. If there's a fight I'd rematch in Wolong for the sheer skill and challenge, this is it. Not even my number 1 achieves that honor, even if I think my number 1 is the cleaner fight. Speaking of, at number 1, who else? It's Liu Bu from Mission 7. What a truly perfect difficulty spike of a fight. This is how you do a boss that is meant to be more difficult than what you faced, without just overtuning damage numbers. The fight starts with Liu Bu on horseback, with you needing to stagger his horse to knock him off. Your goal is to bait out one of 2 red attacks, either a forward charge that starts with Liu Bu spinning his spear, or a jump attack. He'll also try to make distance and pelt you with arrows, for good measure. This is the easy bit, these are all free attacks that should become muscle memory. Once he's off his horse, he always starts with a fiery red attack where he slams down atop you, and if you manage to deflect it, you cancel his flames. It goes the same with his other red attacks, otherwise he'll become buffed and you have to deal with the extra fire damage on top of his combos and arrows. All the while, his horse Red Hair is running a circle around the arena, and hilariously enough, if you end up in its way, it can and will trample you. Eventually, he returns to the horse and the fight repeats the cycle until one of you is down, though the second time you knock him off his horse, he won't always start with a red attack. What makes Liu Bu so good as a fight is that he doesn't have endless combos that chain into one another or all that jazz, he simply provides the perfect challenge for this point in the game. His biggest combo is an 8-hitter that can be predicted and blocked, his red attacks are genuinely tricky to deal with, and his horse running around the arena keeps you penned into the center. His arrows, ironically, were the toughest part of the fight for me, because I kept mistiming my reflex from when he shot them, not when they reached me halfway across the battlefield. There was a fly, I thought it was a spider, I'm keeping this in. And yet at no point in the hour I spent here did I get frustrated. Liu Bu just works. They knew they had to make him special, as he's known as the most gifted warrior of that era, and they did just that. He may not be the toughest fight in the game, or even the one I'd refight the most, but he's just so fucking well designed, and if Nioh 3 is remotely any fights that hit this caliber, which they should, we're in for a good time. And that's my list. Did you guys enjoy my boss ranking of Wolong Fallen Dynasty? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. I have 12 different Soulslikes I'm covering this year, on top of the ones that come out this year as well, which maybe I'll get around to, so it's a really good time to be a part of the channel. Shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for another month. You guys are amazing. You guys get access to my Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 Soul Level 1 runs, and you get a shout out at the end of the video too. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Adios.